The laughter, sharp and dismissive, echoed in the dining room long after the plates were cleared, clinging to the air like the unwelcome scent of burnt sugar. It wasn't the boisterous, joyful laughter that warms a home, it was the other kind, the kind that chips away at you, piece by piece, leaving you feeling small and thoroughly inadequate. My Sunday roast, a dish I'd spent hours on, coaxing flavor from herbs and patience, had been the unfortunate catalyst. My brother, David, had poked at a slightly too crisp potato with his fork, a theatrical grimace on his face. Honestly, Martha, are these meant to be edible, or are we building fortifications for the garden gnomes? His wife, Susan, ever his loyal chorus, had tittered, a high-pitched sound that always set my teeth on edge. Even my own son, Michael, bless his usually gentle heart, had smirked, quickly hiding it behind his napkin when he caught my eye. "It's rustic, Mom," he'd offered, the word rustic clearly a euphemism for charred disaster in their shared familial code. The culmination, however, the remark that truly lodged itself like a shard of glass in my heart, came from my sister, Carol. "Oh, Martha," she'd sighed, shaking her head with a pity that was far more insulting than outright scorn, "you try so hard, dear. Perhaps stick to salads. You can't really go wrong with a salad, can you?" Her smile was beatific, patronizing. The injustice of it burned. I loved to cook. It was my sanctuary, my creative outlet, the way I expressed care. I pored over cookbooks, experimented with spices, and genuinely believed in the magic that could happen when simple ingredients were treated with respect. But to them, I was just Martha, the one who tried hard, the one whose culinary efforts were a running family joke, a reliable source of after-dinner amusement. That particular Sunday, their laughter followed me into the kitchen, a relentless soundtrack to my silent, seething cleanup. The half-eaten roast sat accusingly on the counter, a monument to my perceived failure. It wasn't just about the food, it was about the casual cruelty, the years of accumulated little dismissals that had eroded my confidence. They saw my passion as a foible, my kitchen as a place where good intentions went to die in a puff of smoke. As I scrubbed a pot with unnecessary vigor, a different kind of heat began to build within me, a slow burn of resentment that was surprisingly energizing. If they wouldn't see my skill, if they couldn't taste the love I put into every dish, then perhaps others would. The thought, initially a fleeting spark of defiance, began to glow brighter. Maybe, just maybe, there was a world beyond their condescending smirks, a world where my cooking could be appreciated, even celebrated. The laughter had been meant to diminish me, but instead, it ignited a fierce, unfamiliar resolve. They thought my cooking was a joke. Fine. I'd make sure I had the last laugh, even if they weren't in on it. The decision wasn't an instantaneous lightning bolt. It was more like a stubborn seedling pushing its way through concrete. The idea of a YouTube channel, a platform where I could share my recipes and my love for cooking with an anonymous, potentially more appreciative audience, took root in the fertile ground of my indignation. It felt audacious, terrifying even. Me, Martha, who flinched at public speaking and whose technological prowess barely extended beyond sending an email, venturing into the vast, unforgiving wilderness of the internet. It was almost laughable, and I could already hear Carol's voice in my head, dripping with faux concern. A YouTube channel, Martha. Oh, darling, isn't that for younger people? And you know, people who can actually cook. The imaginary barb spurred me on. My kitchen, once a place of private joy occasionally marred by family critiques, suddenly felt like a potential stage. I spent hours watching other cooking channels, studying their techniques, their presentation, the way they connected with their viewers. Some were slick and professional, others charmingly amateurish. I realized I didn't need to be a celebrity chef. I just needed to be myself, to share what I knew, what I loved. The strategic planning began in earnest, scribbled in a new notebook I bought specifically for this venture, its crisp, empty pages a symbol of a fresh start. I listed recipes I was confident in, ones that had stories attached, ones that my late husband, Tom, had adored. He'd never laughed at my cooking, he'd savored every bite, his praise a quiet, constant reassurance that I now realized I sorely missed. I thought about camera angles, lighting, my kitchen window got lovely afternoon sun, and even what I would call my channel. Martha's Hearth, I decided, a nod to the warmth and comfort I always hoped my food would bring. The first attempt at filming was a comedy of errors. I propped my old tablet on a stack of cookbooks, accidentally started recording my chin, knocked over a bowl of flour, and ended up with a video that was mostly shaky footage of my frantic attempts to salvage the situation. I almost gave up then and there, the familiar chorus of family laughter echoing in my memory. But the image of Susan's smirk, of David's exaggerated disgust, propelled me forward. I deleted the disastrous first take and tried again, and again. Slowly, painstakingly, I learned to steady the camera, to speak more clearly, to edit out the worst of my fumbles using a surprisingly intuitive free software. It was a slow burn process, each small success a decent shot, a cleanly edited transition, a tiny victory against the years of self-doubt they had so carelessly cultivated. This wasn't just about proving them wrong anymore, it was about proving something to myself. It was about reclaiming a part of me that their laughter had tried to extinguish. The early days of Martha's Hearth were a quiet, solitary affair. I'd post a video, my classic apple crumble, a hearty lentil soup, Tom's favorite shepherd's pie, and then watch the view count with a mixture of hope and trepidation. For weeks, the numbers barely flickered. 10 views. 15. Most of them were probably me, checking obsessively. The silence from the internet was almost as deafening as my family's ridicule. Carol, during one of her obligatory Sunday calls, had asked what was keeping me so busy. "Oh, just pottering around, exploring new hobbies," I'd said vaguely, unwilling to offer her fresh ammunition. "As long as it doesn't involve the stove too much, dear," she'd replied, her voice laced with that infuriating blend of sweetness and condescension. I bit back a sharp retort, channeling my frustration into meticulously kneading dough for my next video, a tutorial on artisan bread. I focused on the process, the feel of the ingredients, the methodical steps. I found a strange solace in speaking to the camera, even if it felt like I was talking to an empty room. I imagined a kind, interested viewer, someone who genuinely wanted to learn, someone who wouldn't judge a slightly misshapen loaf. Slowly, painstakingly, the first few subscribers trickled in. Each notification was a jolt of pure joy, a tiny affirmation that I wasn't just shouting into the void. The first comment arrived a month in, "This recipe looks wonderful. Reminds me of my grandmother's cooking. Thank you for sharing." I read it over and over, tears pricking my eyes. It was from a stranger, someone with no preconceived notions, no history of mocking my efforts. It was genuine. This small kindness from an anonymous well-wisher felt more validating than any grudging compliment I'd ever received from my family. I started interacting with my handful of viewers, responding to their questions, thanking them for their support. A small community began to form, a stark contrast to the critical audience I faced at family gatherings. My family, meanwhile, remained blissfully, or perhaps willfully, ignorant. They continued their good-natured teasing, oblivious to the small digital revolution taking place in my kitchen. David once quipped, after I brought a new batch of scones to a family brunch, which were, I thought, rather good, still bravely battling the baking elements, "Martha. Points for persistence." I just smiled, a secret smile, thinking of the 57 subscribers who had left encouraging comments on my scone-making video the week before. Their laughter was beginning to lose its sting, replaced by the quiet hum of my growing online world. The resilience they unknowingly fostered was now my shield, and my small, burgeoning channel, my quiet rebellion. The breakthrough, when it came, was as unexpected as a perfectly risen soufflé on a humid day. I'd decided to film a recipe for my mother's lemon drizzle cake, a simple, unassuming bake, but one steeped in nostalgia and love. I didn't think much of it, just poured my heart into the storytelling, recounting memories of baking it with her as a child, the scent of citrus filling her sunny kitchen. I talked about the little imperfections she embraced, how she believed that love was the most important ingredient. I uploaded it on a Tuesday morning, as usual, and didn't expect much. By Wednesday evening, my phone started buzzing with notifications, more than I'd ever received. The view count for the lemon drizzle cake video was climbing at an astonishing rate. Hundreds, then thousands. Comments poured in, not just about the recipe, but about the story, the warmth, the authenticity. This is so much more than a cooking video. It's like a hug from the past, I cried watching this. Your mother sounds like a wonderful woman, Martha, you have such a comforting presence. Please make more videos. I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where so many of my culinary efforts had been dissected and dismissed, and I wept. But these were not the bitter tears of frustration, they were tears of overwhelming gratitude, of disbelief. Strangers, hundreds of them, were connecting with me, with my stories, with my food. They weren't laughing at me, they were embracing me. The video, it turned out, had been shared on a popular baking forum, then picked up by a well-known food blogger. It was going viral, in its own quiet, heartwarming way. My subscriber count exploded. Suddenly, Martha's Hearth wasn't just a hobby, it was a phenomenon, albeit a modest one. The influx of positive reinforcement was like a healing balm on old wounds. These were my loyal allies, my unseen friends who saw value in what I offered. Their words built me up in a way my family's critiques never could. The irony was not lost on me. The very thing my family had derided, my heartfelt, perhaps sometimes imperfect, cooking, was now being celebrated by a global audience. My confidence, once a flickering candle, began to burn with a steady, bright flame. I invested in a better microphone, a small ring light. I started planning content with more intention, feeling a responsibility to this new, supportive community. My family, of course, knew nothing. They were too busy planning their next family get-together, where, no doubt, my contribution to the potluck would be met with the usual gentle ribbing. Little did they know, the cook they underestimated was quietly taking the internet by storm, one heartfelt recipe at a time. The secret was delicious. With newfound confidence, Martha's Hearth truly began to flourish. I found my rhythm, my voice. My on-screen persona wasn't a persona at all, it was just me, Martha. A little more assured, a little more polished perhaps, but fundamentally the same woman who found joy in the alchemy of ingredients. I shared recipes that were close to my heart, hearty stews for chilly evenings, delicate pastries I'd learned from old cookbooks, vibrant salads that Carol would have been surprised to know involved more than just not going wrong. My kitchen, once the scene of domestic ridicule, transformed into a vibrant studio. The scent of baking bread, simmering sauces, and freshly chopped herbs became the constant, comforting backdrop to my days. I developed a knack for storytelling, weaving personal anecdotes and family history into my recipe demonstrations. Viewers commented that they felt like they were in the kitchen with me, learning from a kind aunt or a cherished grandmother. The resilient protagonist they saw was a woman who had turned years of quiet hurt into a source of gentle strength. My subscriber numbers climbed steadily into the tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. The comment section became a lively, supportive community. People shared their own cooking triumphs and failures, asked for advice, and thanked me for inspiring them to get back into the kitchen. I meticulously replied to as many as I could, fostering the connection that had become so precious to me. My family, however, remained in their bubble of blissful ignorance. At Sunday dinners, the teasing continued, though perhaps with a little less venom, a little more perfunctory. "What culinary masterpiece have you graced us with today, Martha?" David would ask, a smirk playing on his lips. I'd simply present my dish, perhaps a perfectly roasted chicken I'd featured on the channel the previous week. A recipe that had garnered thousands of rave reviews, and watch them eat, their comments a mix of faint praise and subtle digs. "Not bad, Martha, not bad at all. Potatoes are almost crispy this time," Susan might venture. I'd just smile enigmatically. The secret was a warm, glowing ember within me. There were moments, of course, when I was tempted to reveal my online success, to wipe the smug looks off their faces. But I held back. The victory was sweeter precisely because it was mine alone, untainted by their reactions. It was a quiet, internal revolution. My evolution was palpable, even to me. I walked taller, spoke with more assurance, and the old anxieties that used to plague me before family gatherings had largely dissipated. I no longer craved their approval. I had found validation from a far wider, and far kinder, audience. The kitchen was no longer a place of potential judgment, but a realm of creativity and connection, my sanctuary well and truly reclaimed. The irony reached a delicious crescendo when I started receiving offers for brand collaborations. Small at first, a local artisan bakery wanting to send me some of their flours, a company specializing in eco-friendly kitchenware. Then came a more significant one. A well-known kitchen appliance brand wanted to sponsor a series of videos on Martha's Hearth. The fee they offered was more than my monthly pension. I sat with the email, a cup of tea growing cold beside me, a slow smile spreading across my face. This was tangible proof, beyond subscriber counts and glowing comments, that what I was doing had real-world value. My hobby was becoming a viable enterprise. I imagined telling Carol. Her carefully constructed expression of polite interest would likely crumble into disbelief, perhaps even a touch of envy. The thought was undeniably satisfying, a private little moment of triumph. I signed the contract, the pen feeling surprisingly powerful in my hand. The sponsored videos were a success, seamlessly integrated into my usual content, my viewers appreciating the transparency. I used the new food processor to demonstrate a complex pastry dough, its efficiency a stark contrast to my old, struggling machine. My internal monologues during this period were a rich tapestry of emotions. There was immense pride, of course, and a deep sense of gratitude to my online community. But there was also a lingering wistfulness regarding my family. Why couldn't they have seen this in me? Why did it take an army of strangers to validate what was right under their noses? The hurt hadn't entirely vanished, but it was now layered with a philosophical acceptance. Perhaps some people are just incapable of seeing beyond their own narrow perceptions. Their laughter, which once felt like a physical blow, now seemed like a distant, almost pathetic sound. They were missing out, not just on good food, but on seeing me, truly seeing me, in my element, confident and fulfilled. I continued to attend family gatherings, bringing my increasingly sophisticated dishes, which were now met with a slightly puzzled silence rather than outright mockery. Had my cooking actually improved that much? Or were they just running out of jokes? I suspected a bit of both. The elephant in the room, my flourishing online career, remained unaddressed, a delicious secret that gave me a quiet sense of power. The universe, it seemed, had a delightful sense of poetic justice. The woman whose culinary skills were a family punchline was now, quite literally, a paid professional, her recipes enjoyed by hundreds of thousands, her kitchen a testament to quiet, steadfast rebellion. The savor of that particular truth was sweeter than any dessert I could have baked. The reveal, when it finally happened, was not of my orchestrating but a product of sheer, delightful happenstance, the kind of unexpected plot twist that life occasionally throws your way. My niece, Sarah, David's eldest daughter, a bright, tech-savvy young woman in her early 20s who, to her credit, had always been politely neutral about my cooking, was visiting from university. She was staying with David and Susan, and I'd invited them all over for a casual Saturday lunch. I'd made a coq au vin, a dish I'd recently featured on Martha's Hearth, to great acclaim, its rich aroma filling the house. As we were finishing the meal, Sarah was scrolling through her phone, as young people often do. Suddenly, she paused, her brow furrowing. "Wait a minute," she murmured, tilting her phone screen. "This looks familiar." My heart gave a little flutter. David, noticing her absorption, asked, "What's up, love?" "Found another cat video." Sarah looked up, her eyes wide with dawning realization, first at her phone, then at me. "Aunt Martha," she said slowly, a note of incredulity in her voice. Is Martha's Hearth you?" The question hung in the air, heavy and charged. All conversation stopped. David, Susan, Carol, and Michael, who were all present, turned to look at me, their expressions a comical blend of confusion and disbelief. I felt a blush creep up my neck, but I met Sarah's gaze calmly. "Yes, dear," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "That's my little YouTube channel." Sarah's jaw practically dropped. "Little?" "Aunt Martha, she has almost 500,000 subscribers. Her lemon drizzle cake video is legendary. My foodie group chat talks about her all the time. We all thought she was some sweet, undiscovered grandma in the Cotswolds or something. The dam of their ignorance broke." David choked on his wine. Susan's perfectly applied lipstick seemed to quiver. Carol's eyes widened to an almost comical degree. Michael just stared at me, his fork suspended halfway to his mouth. "You?" Carol finally managed, her voice a squeak. "You're Martha's Hearth. The one who does those lovely baking tutorials." The word lovely sounded alien on her tongue, forced and unnatural. The silence that followed was thick with unspoken questions, with the dawning realization of years of misplaced ridicule. I simply smiled, a serene, Mona Lisa smile, and took a slow sip of my water. The power dynamic in the room had shifted so palpably it was almost a physical sensation. The years of their laughter, their condescending remarks, their casual dismissals, all seemed to converge in that single, stunned moment. I hadn't planned this confrontation, this dramatic unveiling, but oh, the sweet, sweet satisfaction of it. The air crackled, not with tension, but with the undeniable thud of poetic justice landing squarely in the middle of my dining room. The aftermath of the revelation was a strange cocktail of awkward apologies, grudging respect, and a profound, almost seismic shift in our family dynamic. The stunned silence that had fallen over the lunch table eventually gave way to a barrage of questions, mostly from Sarah, who was genuinely thrilled and full of admiration. My brother, David, for once, was rendered almost speechless. He kept looking from me to his daughter, then back to me, as if trying to reconcile the Martha he thought he knew with the accomplished online personality Sarah was describing. 500,000 subscribers, he finally mumbled, shaking his head in disbelief. "Martha, are you serious?" Susan, ever practical, immediately wanted to know about the financial aspect. "Are you making money from this, Martha?" she asked, her voice tinged with a new, almost avaricious curiosity. When I confirmed, modestly, that yes, the channel was quite profitable, her eyebrows shot up. Carol was perhaps the most visibly discomfited. Her usual air of patronizing superiority had completely deflated, replaced by a rather unbecoming shade of green. "Well, I never," she stammered, avoiding my gaze. To think, all this time, Michael, my son, was quiet for a long time, his expression thoughtful. Later, when the others were still reeling, he approached me in the kitchen. "Mom," he said, his voice low and earnest, I'm really sorry. For all the times we, well, you know, laughed. We were idiots." It was the apology I hadn't realized I'd been waiting for, simple and sincere. It didn't erase years of hurt, but it was a start, a genuine crack in the wall of their old perceptions. In the weeks that followed, things were different. The teasing stopped completely. Instead, there were hesitant questions about my filming schedule, about my latest recipes. Carol even, rather awkwardly, asked if I could show her how to make a decent pie crust, a request so out of character it almost made me laugh out loud. My new sense of self-worth, already solidified by my online success, became unshakable. I no longer needed their validation, but it was, I had to admit, rather gratifying to receive it, however belatedly. I was no longer just Martha, the family's resident culinary joke. I was Martha, the successful YouTuber, the woman who had built an empire from her own kitchen, fueled by little more than passion and a quiet determination to prove them wrong. The triumph wasn't loud or boisterous, it was a deep, internal hum of satisfaction, a quiet victory that resonated in every perfectly baked loaf, every glowing comment, every new subscriber. My cooking hadn't just found an audience, it had given me back my voice, and in doing so, had subtly, irrevocably, changed the tune of my entire family. My final word, the true culmination of this unexpected journey, wasn't spoken in anger or gloating, but lived in the quiet confidence of my newfound success, and the subtle rebalancing of my world. Martha's Hearth continued to grow, my online community a constant source of joy and inspiration. I collaborated with renowned chefs, was featured in online magazines, and even received an award for Best Home Cooking Channel from a prominent food blogger collective. Each accolade was a quiet affirmation, a testament to the passion they had once so readily dismissed. My relationship with my family settled into a new, more respectful equilibrium. The laughter at my expense was a thing of the past, replaced by a sometimes awkward, sometimes genuine, interest in my work. David would occasionally forward me articles about YouTube trends, and Susan once asked for my professional opinion on a new brand of olive oil. Carol, bless her, even subscribed to my channel, leaving hesitant, overly complimentary comments that I knew were her way of making amends. Michael became my biggest local supporter, often helping me with the more technical aspects of filming when he visited, his pride in my achievements a quiet comfort. The most profound poetic justice, however, lay not in their changed attitudes, but in my own internal landscape. The old sting of their ridicule had faded, replaced by a deep-seated sense of self-assuredness. I cooked with joy, with freedom, knowing my skills were appreciated by hundreds of thousands, even if my own family had been the last to recognize them. The kitchen, my hearth, was truly mine again, a place of creativity, warmth, and empowerment. I sometimes thought back to that disastrous Sunday roast, the sharp laughter, the feeling of utter diminishment. It was a distant memory now, a catalyst rather than a scar. They had meant to put me in my place, but instead, they had inadvertently launched me into a place I could never have imagined, a place where my passion was celebrated, my voice was heard, and my cooking, far from being a joke, was a source of connection and joy for people all over the world. And that, I realized, was the sweetest revenge of all, not their defeat, but my undeniable, flourishing, delicious triumph. The aroma of baking often filled my home, a constant, fragrant reminder that sometimes, the greatest victories are cooked up in the quiet crucible of one's own kitchen, seasoned with resilience, and served with a generous helping of grace. The journey from being the family's culinary laughingstock to a celebrated YouTube personality had reshaped not just my life, but my very essence. The Martha's Hearth channel was more than a collection of recipes, it was a chronicle of my transformation, a vibrant tapestry woven with threads of rediscovered passion and hard-won confidence. My 10 sections of life, previously defined by their subtle dismissals and my quiet endurance, were now chapters in a story of empowerment, each one more flavorful than the last. The minimum word count per section of my internal narrative had expanded, filled with richer details, more nuanced emotions. The success wasn't just about proving them wrong. It was about discovering a strength within myself I hadn't known existed, a resilience that had been simmering beneath the surface, waiting for the right catalyst, their derision, ironically enough, to bring it to a rolling boil. My relationship with food itself had deepened. It was no longer just about nourishment, or even creative expression, it was a language, a way to connect with a global community, to share warmth and comfort across continents. The strategic planning I'd meticulously undertaken for my channel, the content calendars, the engagement strategies, the gradual upgrading of my equipment, had taught me business acumen I never thought I'd possess. I learned about SEO, analytics, and branding, all from the cozy confines of my kitchen. The dry and poetic justice was an ongoing feast. There were moments, like when Carol asked me to cater a small charity event she was organizing, her request cloaked in layers of newfound respect, that felt like perfectly executed punchlines to a long-running cosmic joke. Or when David, attempting to impress business clients, proudly mentioned his sister, the famous food YouTuber, their clumsy attempts to align themselves with my success were a constant, quiet source of amusement. My resilient protagonist arc had reached a satisfying plateau of contentment. I no longer felt the fierce, vengeful fire that had initially fueled me, though the memory of it was a reminder of how far I'd come. It had mellowed into a steady, warm glow of self-assurance. The emotional, fierce, vengeful, triumphant tone that had characterized my initial drive had matured into something more akin to serene, accomplished, generous, and quietly victorious. My kitchen, once a place of solitary, often criticized, endeavor, was now a hub of joyful creation, its countertops occasionally graced by visiting chefs or eager collaborators. The visual metaphors of my life had shifted too, from empty chairs representing unspoken criticism to a table laden with shared food and genuine connection, both online and, increasingly, offline with my reformed family. The power shift was complete, not through aggression, but through the undeniable weight of achievement. They hadn't just stopped laughing, they had started listening, watching, and perhaps, finally, learning. And I, Martha, the once mocked cook, found myself teaching them not just about recipes, but about resilience, passion, and the sweet, satisfying taste of having the last, perfectly baked laugh.